You ever wonder what happens when astronauts get bored? Because apparently, they start brewing booze in space. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
NASA spent billions on rocket
Sometimes I get
science,
so
life
mad, there's no
support
controlling
systems,
me. My thoughts get
oxygen
so bad,
tanks,
I'm like,
and
I
still
might
somehow
grab a bat, I
forgot the
don't
most
know. My
important
wrath, my
thing:
blood boils over
liquor.
like,
So,
oh
what
God,
do
here it
astronauts
goes. I
do when
lost
they
all
can't
feeling
bring
from my head
alcohol
to my
to
toes. You
space?
said some shit that
They
I
make
can't
their
let
own,
go. So just
yep,
stay tuned for the
grown
rest of
ass
the show.
scientists turned the International
So
Space
have you
Station
ever
into a
felt
floating frat
betrayed?
house.
Switch your side,
Now,
you
look,
see things
officially,
like something
NASA
needs
bans
change.
alcohol. Like, hard
'Cause I
ban.
know you got me
They say it
fucked
messes with
up. Let
judgment,
me show you
dehydrates you,
what's
and affects
up.
oxygen levels.
'Cause enough is
Basically,
enough.
space DUI
I'll
is a
take
real
a face
thing.
full of
But let's be real.
pain just to
You
make a
lock six
stand.
adults
I
in a metal
know there's
tube
no
for six
turning
months,
back.
circling the Earth
Oh
16 times a
God,
day.
adrenaline
Somebody's
wasted.
gonna say,
So mad I
yo,
can taste
we could
it.
totally
I know
ferment the
there's no
juice.
turning
And they did.
back.
They took fruit
I'll
juice,
do what it takes, I ain't
orange,
making
apple,
mistakes like
whatever they
that.
had, and just let
I'll
it
put
sit.
it on your face,
Add a
so
little
baby, gon'
sugar,
take
let
it
the yeast in
back.
the air do its thing, and
I'll
boom,
lose my shit, I
cosmic
go
moonshine.
crazy when I'm
Or,
mad.
technically,
And now
sunshine.
you go
They
bitch, well
called
shut
it
the fuck up, my
space juice,
man.
which is adorable considering it was straight up prison wine. Imagine the group chat on
And
that
now
space
that I'm gone,
station.
yeah, I know there's no
Astronaut
turning
1,
back.
you up? Astronaut 2, yeah, meet me in the storage module. Bring the Capri Suns. You know they had code names for it too. Mission Fermentation. Operation Buzz Lightyear. The first batch apparently exploded because pressure builds up in zero gravity, and there's no fridge to cool it down. So imagine you're floating in space, doing science, and suddenly, boom, orange juice grenade. NASA's monitoring from Houston, like, station, we detected an unplanned pressure spike. And the astronauts are like, yeah, that's thermal expansion. Meanwhile, Yuri's wiping pulp off the walls. Now, here's the thing nobody ever admitted it officially. NASA would never say, yes, our astronauts were sipping Henny in orbit. But all the old timers know. Ask any retired astronaut about fermentation experiments, and they'll smirk like your uncle when you mention his college days. One guy even said, we didn't drink. We just happened to have a chemical reaction that smelled like wine. Sure, bro. And I don't gamble. I just invest emotionally in dice. The Russians? They didn't even pretend. They straight up brought cognac to space. That's not a joke. The Soviets used to smuggle mini bottles on their missions. They'd say it was medicine for stress. Yeah, stress medicine that comes in oak barrels and pairs well with beef stroganoff. They even convinced their doctors that brandy was good for blood circulation in zero gravity. Of course it is. It makes your whole body feel warm because you're drunk. There's a famous story on one Russian cosmonaut offered a shot to an American astronaut, and the American's like, I can't drink that. And the Russian goes, then you can't be trusted. NASA had a meltdown when they found out. They're like, this is a highly controlled scientific environment. Meanwhile, Russia's like, yes, comrade, controlled by vodka. And honestly, that explains everything. You see how chill Russians are in space? They're floating upside down, fixing stuff with hammers, whistling. Meanwhile, the Americans are over there, calculating oxygen flow rates and crying. But it's not just the Russians. France got in on it too. Of course, France was like, you know what space needs? Wine. They literally sent Bordeaux to space, like real wine bottles. They said it was to study the effects of microgravity on aging. No, it was to study the effects of being classy while drunk. They even brought grapes and yeast. The experiment results said the wine aged differently in orbit. Translation, it got funky, but we still drank it. Japan sent whiskey, Scotland sent whiskey. Even the Italians were like, we'll send espresso and grappa, baby. At this point, the ISS isn't a science lab. It's a floating bar crawl. They could open a whole theme restaurant. Welcome to Club Zero G, where your drink and your dignity both float away. Now imagine being that astronaut who gets drunk in zero gravity. You can't even stand straight because there's no up or down. You just spin slowly like a lazy disco ball, regretting your decisions. You think hangovers are bad on Earth? Try one where you can't puke down. You throw up and it just stays there, like a judgment cloud. NASA tried to cover it all up by saying, we prohibit alcohol consumption in space. But come on, man. The Russians literally built the space station bar. The American half runs on oxygen and anxiety. The Russian half runs on jazz and gin. And they still work together. So maybe the key to world peace is booze. Now, let's be honest, I get it. I'd probably drink too. You're isolated, floating in darkness. eating freeze-dried spaghetti and pooping into a vacuum hose. Yeah, give me the juice, man. They say alcohol affects coordination. Bro, you're already floating. Coordination left the chat. They say it could impair your judgment. You're living in a giant tin can with no exit. Judgment already failed when you signed up. You know what the funniest part is? They weren't supposed to have fruit juice at all. Too much sugar. But NASA gave them juice pouches anyway. And guess what? Yeast lives everywhere, even in space. So these astronauts accidentally started brewing because the yeast just said, yo, this is our time. It's the world's first intergalactic brewery, brought to you by poor sanitation and loneliness. And you just know there was that one astronaut who took it too far. Every group's got that guy. They're like, let's make a small batch. And he's like, nah, I'm opening a distillery. Next thing you know, mission control's hearing weird transmissions. Station report status. We good, Houston. Just doing science-y stuff. They probably tried to rename the modules. Welcome to the International Space Saloon. Imagine if one of them got tipsy and went on a spacewalk. Yo, this view's incredible. I can see my house from here, then just drifts away like a helium balloon with student debt. NASA. Commander, where are you going? Astronaut. Just chasing my dreams, baby. And you know the PR team back on Earth had nightmares. Because if that story ever leaked, it'd be over. NASA astronauts caught brewing beer in orbit. The memes would never stop. They'd have to hold a press conference like, technically, it was not alcohol. It was a spontaneous fermentation event. Right. And technically, I didn't break my diet. I just rearranged calories. The funniest part? NASA eventually started officially experimenting with alcohol chemistry in space. Not for drinking, for scientific study. Yeah, sure. They said, we want to understand how ethanol behaves in microgravity. That's nerd talk for, we're trying to make it taste better up there. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the next Mars mission includes a bar. Welcome aboard Starship Happy Hour. 2-drink minimum, 0 gravity. But you know what? I respect it. Because it's the most human thing ever. We went to space, looked around, saw the stars, the Earth, the infinite beauty of the cosmos, and still said, man, this would hit different with a drink. So yeah, astronauts got drunk on space juice. And it makes perfect sense. Because no matter where we go, space, Mars, another galaxy, we're still just a bunch of stressed out humans trying to take the edge off. We might discover alien life one day and the first thing we'll do? Raise a glass. Cheers, E.T. It's 5 o'clock on every planet.